So everybody, this morning I'm thrilled to be interviewing John Inverdale, who all of you will know as brilliant sporting presenter, broadcaster of a lot of all the major sporting events over the years. Thank you, John, for chatting to me today.
And a pleasure. When we're talking, it's a week and a bit before the festival, and there's a palpable sense of excitement within me. I'm looking forward to going back to Cheltenham, a proper Cheltenham as well, and really feeling. I mean, one of the bizarre things is I got asked last week actually what I'm most looking forward to, and I said almost tongue in cheek, but actually it's almost true as well. The traffic jam on the first day, getting in, because it's the sense of excitement of what's to come.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the thing about sport, I mean, Cheltenham very, very, very rarely disappoints. But the trouble with all sport, which is its great strength, but also its great weakness, is you never know what you're going to get. You go and watch Hamlet and they're all dead at the end, but you go and watch a sporting event, you've no idea what's going to happen at the end. And it might be monumentally disappointing, and all that expectation that you had, which is why, for sport, the expectation is always, is the guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's always, the expectation is guaranteed to be fantastic. What happens afterwards is kind of in the lap of the gods. Yeah. So that before a ball is hit or passed or a horse is saddled, there's always that sense of anticipation, and that's what I'm looking forward to most.
No, absolutely. I think because the last 2 years have obviously been overshadowed with COVID, I reckon people are going to be practically camping out the night before.
It'll be like getting in. Almost like Wimbledon, there'll be a queue,
Yeah, I think there will be. No, it's so exciting. So your career as a radio and television presenter has spanned for many years. Would you say there's a particular sport you have found most exciting and most enjoyable to cover?
Well, I mean, I was brought up in a sort of a rugby tennis family. My mum was a very good tennis player. My dad's rugby was his great love. But I mean, my interest in racing was stimulated really. I was very unwell when I was young. And in those days, TV didn't start really. People of a certain age, anybody watching this will remember, in those days, TV didn't start till kind of like tea time, 5 o'clock, except when there was sport on, if there was a test match or if there was racing. And so I missed a lot of school, and I yearned for when there'd be a race meeting on, because they'd be like, I could legitimately say, can we put the TV on?
How brilliant.
It's one of those things. I mean, there's no family background in the sport at all, but I'd see a horse run and I'd say, I'm sure that horse ran 2 weeks ago. And then it would run again a fortnight later, and I'd say, didn't that win 2 weeks ago? And just little bits of grains of things then. And I used to love, again, you have to be of a certain age to remember this, I used to love John Rickman on ITV's TV coverage in those days, who always used to have a hat that he used to say hello. I think Ed Chamberlain really should actually bring that back, because I think
maybe you should.
Such a class. Anyway, and just little sort of, a little seed gets planted, and then bit by bit you get more interested in it, and and suddenly I'd say to my mum, could you go and get a copy of the Sporting Life, please? And then suddenly here we are all these years later, and it's kind of just an integral part of your life,
Fantastic. That's amazing. So that's how it sort of all manifest itself, did it? The love of racing.
Yeah. And I mean, in let's get this right, was it 71? I think it was 1971. I had a Latin teacher at school called Peter Headage. But of course, the way it was spelt, it was headache. So everybody, of course, used to poke fun at him about that. But there was a horse called Aeschylus that was owned by the Queen Mother and was running in the Champion Hurdle that year. And I'd been caught reading the Sporting Life at the back of the class a couple of times when I shouldn't have been. And I decided on this particular day, and I was very quick off the mark. I don't know quite where that came from. But anyway, I was looking at it. It was Champion Hurdle Day, which I think would have been a Wednesday in those days. I think Champion Hurdle was on the second day, when I think it was a long time ago. Anyway, and I was reading the Sporting Life, and Peter Headitch called me to the front of the class and told
no.
me off. And I had a copy of the Sporting Life with me. And I said, sir, and bearing in mind, of course, it's a Latin class. I said, sir, there's a horse called Aeschylus, classical name, owned by the Queen Mother, running in the big race today at Cheltenham. And I really think that, it would be quite fun for everybody in the class if we were able to watch it, knowing that, that we were interested in it. And fair play to him, actually. He said, okay, he said, tell you what I'll do. He said, I'm going to put 10 shillings each way on it. And he walked down to, I know that, he went that lunchtime, he walked down to the bookmakers in the village where the school was. And quite a number of the class crowded round a radio to listen to that champion hurdle on the radio that afternoon. And the horse came third. I don't know, I'm thinking, was it 33 to 1? I can't remember. Anyway.
Wow, so
anyway, Peter Headitch came in. We didn't have Latin the next day, mercifully. I think we had to wait 48 hours for it. And he came in anyway and brought a bowl, like a tray of crunchy bars.
Oh wow!
And handed them out to everybody in the class who wanted them as reward for this third place finish in the champion hurdle 2 days earlier. So and of course, which was so much more effective. A little sort of, again, a little morsel of man management.
Yeah.
So much. My God, I mean, I tried so hard in those Latin lessons as a result of him doing that.
Yeah.
Whereas he could have just slammed me in detention, and I'd have resented it forevermore. So anyway.
He must have loved you after that.
Yeah, well, I was just, it was the stars aligning with a classically named horse in a classics lesson, and a teacher who had a bit of something about him.
Oh, that's brilliant. And do you, John? Do you go racing regularly?
Yeah, I do. I like nothing more than just. I find it a great me time thing. I like going on my own or take the dog, and courses like Plumpton and Fontwell near where I am.
Yes.
You can take you can park the car in the middle, and you can actually. I mean, to me in many ways it's much more fun standing by an open ditch and just watching the race.
Yes.
Than it is
being in
the bar almost,
Yeah.
And so I like it as a day out, and so that's why in many ways, I mean, Cheltenham was my favourite course, obviously.
Yes, of course.
But I mean, I love going to courses like Hexham.
Hexham's lovely,
which is just fantastic, and just Wincanton as well. Actually, just a fantastic course. So just ones that have got. I think what it is as well, it's courses that make you feel space.
Yes.
In a sense, and just outside and at one with the world.
Yeah, no, there's nothing better, is there? It's lovely. It's lovely. And how long have you been on the committee at Cheltenham?
Well, it's probably 18 months, although the first 9 months was kind of.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't really doing anything, and I mean, it was when Martin St. Quintin, who's the chairman there, asked me. It didn't take me long to say yes.
No.
And it's it's a bit like going in to help run Manchester United when I suppose you could have started at Rochdale or at Oldham or somewhere, but you go straight in there,
straight into the top.
You go in, and it's a lot of big money for a start off. You're talking lots of zeros when you're looking at balance sheets.
Yes.
But you're also talking, I think, about the to me the most important thing. If you park the Grand National, and to a lesser extent Ascot, because Ascot doesn't quite have that resonance that Cheltenham does across a wider sporting public. It is the shop window for the sport, and the image that Cheltenham sets is effectively, for the non-racing public, it's how they perceive national hunt racing, because it's become such a big thing. I think that's the other thing about it. Cheltenham now is so big. It's horse racing's Wimbledon.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it?
So you can talk about Davis Cup ties, and you can talk about Eastbourne and Nottingham and Queens and etc etc etc. But when you talk about tennis to people who aren't tennis people, it's that fortnight. Yeah. If you talk to people who aren't really interested in racing, of which there are many, by the way, there's a huge swathe of the population who it doesn't touch at all. They'll talk about the national, but they'll talk about Cheltenham That's the place.
Yes.
Like that's Lord's, that's Twickenham, that's Wembley. And so the responsibility to get things right at Cheltenham is huge, because you are effectively creating the image of the sport on the widest possible canvas.
Yes.
And, so that's why issues of horse welfare, about development, about how the sport is perceived by the widest possible constituency. Cheltenham in many ways sets the standard, has to set the template by which others have to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you sort of give us a bit of a overview of what's involved in being on the committee? I mean, are you there? How often do you all have to meet?
We meet regularly. I mean, I think the thing is, it's Cheltenham is one of the Jockey Club racecourses, which also includes, Epsom, which the trying to get the Derby back to what it was, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago is probably impossible now, but to try and get the Derby to resonate again with a bigger sporting public, it's a major issue that the Jockey Club is wrestling with at the moment. I think one of the other things as well, I mean, again, this is quite a niche audience who's watching this, but it's still, but the problem is with horse racing, and indeed actually with any sport, is if you spend your whole life in the company of people who are involved in that world, you think that everybody is involved in that world, so therefore everybody knows about it. Well, actually, funnily enough, they don't. And so a lot of people think the Jockey Club run horse racing, when of course they don't. The BHA do. The Jockey Club is an organisation that runs a number of racecourses from Carlisle to Exeter, but has at its heart some of the most well-known racecourses in the country, and and it has to try and create a product that makes the sport as appealing as possible to the widest possible number of people. And that's whether that is music after racing, whether I mean, I would love it. It's kind of the wrong time of the year. I think it'd be fantastic. The bootleg Beatles performed after racing at Cheltenham after the last meeting, the trials day. It was fantastic. The Centaur place was absolutely heaving in there, and it was
really good idea.
It was a great finale to what had been a really, really good day's racing. And maybe down the road, I mean, don't throw your hands up in horror, but I tell you, if you've got Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift playing live by the cross-country fence in front of the stands, I think that would be. I think that's probably going a little bit too far. But but it's about trying to drive the sport, the course, but the sport forward.
Yeah, it would do it a lot of favours, wouldn't it? It really would.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the interesting thing about the festival is how many. And I haven't seen figures. I'm sure probably figures have been done, and I probably ought to know the answer to this, but I'm just talking. In the same way that 82,000 people go to Twickenham, a lot of them are rugby fans. A lot of them are, in the modern vernacular, of event fans. They're going for the event. That's the space. Lots of jargon here, but that's the space that Cheltenham has moved into. Whereas maybe 30 or 40 years, definitely 30 years ago, I'd say. 30 years ago, it was an event for National Hunt fans. It was horse racing people went to Cheltenham. Now, there's still that at its heart, there's that core, but there's this event thing now, which is so much bigger than the event itself, to the point where you drive down almost any A road in the country at the moment, there are huge billboards up advertising, 4 days of extraordinary, etc., etc. It's a great campaign, and it makes people very aware that it's happening. And obviously, from the bookmaking point of view, it's an absolute kind of cash cow for them across 4 days. So it's being transformed in a way from being a sporting event in its purest sense to being an event, which changes its nature, it changes its atmosphere in a way. I mean, it means that the desire to be there. I mean, it was sold out on the Thursday and the Friday this year, which is fantastic already. More than a week before the festival starts. So it's about keeping the essence of the sport while acknowledging the need to broaden its appeal.
Yeah.
And it's a balancing act. You know, you look at what cricket's having to doing at the moment, and it's alienating. Cricket's alienating a lot of people, maybe from the older generation, with the changes to short form cricket and this, that, and the other, and the 100 last year. But you look at it from the counter argument point of view, from a marketing point of view, from getting people involved in the sport who wouldn't ever have watched it before. It was a monumental success.
Yeah.
So it's about treading that line and getting the balance right.
Yes, I mean, everything has to evolve, I suppose, eventually. People just don't like change, do they?
No, absolutely.
I mean, no one likes change. I mean, there's something about Cheltenham, though, well, racing, I suppose, but Cheltenham just cannot fail to produce fairy tales, can it? You know, whether it's from, you know, the owner of a horse, there's always a lovely story behind.
Yeah, I mean, I would say
the successes.
Cheltenham has an incredible advantage over, I would say, almost every other sport. But you know, the places like Goodwood are obviously spectacularly wonderful. But just the geographical advantage that Cheltenham had, just what it looks like, just when you go there. You know, when you go to Cheltenham, you know, we had a committee meeting there 10 days or so ago, and it was a lovely crisp winter's day. You only have to stand there and you just go, whoa, this is just fantastic. It's like, you know, it's like, you know, you get a train or get a tube to St John's Wood and just walk down the road and walk into Lord's on a day when there's nobody's there, and you just look around and you can hear a ball being hit. Yeah. Hear the crowd. You can hear the jostling at the bar, but actually it's all in your head. There's nothing happening there. So Cheltenham is the same. You get there, you can hear the roar. You can hear you can hear the hoofbeats. You can feel it. You can literally. It's an internal feeling that you just get consumed by. So Cheltenham's got that as an amazing advantage over lots of other courses. Just by when you go there, it just goes, it hits you in the stomach. And by the nature of the you know, especially during the festival, I mean, some of the handicaps produce some ridiculous finishes, which are fantastically exciting. Yes. But there's nothing quite like, you know, you can have all the arguments you can have about in the days of Schumacher and Federer in his pomp and Djokovic, or, you know, Tiger Woods, whatever, about whether somebody winning by a long margin, winning 6-love, 6-love, 6-1, or winning an Open Championship by 8 shots, is that actually compelling entertainment? If something is absolutely brilliant, you have to just take your hat off to it and just say, wow. And you just stand back in awe and just admire it. So on the one hand, you know, so you can have Sprinter Sacre flying over the line and you just go, whoa, just, you know, it actually doesn't matter if the winning margin is 2 lengths or 200 lengths. You're just actually watching it and going, that is fantastic. That's why the Champion Chase this year could produce a moment like that, which makes you go just wow. And Honeysuckle in the Champion Hurdle could do the same thing, but in a funny kind of way, because we all like football matches that finish 5-4. If you've got 3 in a line over the last in the Gold Cup, it's incredible. That's what it's about. That's that moment of touchdown and who gets away from that last fence first, and you know, and that hill. I mean, all those races over the years when you think, oh, X has got it, but they haven't.
And then
you think Y's got it, but Y doesn't get it either because Z gets it, because where the hell did that come from?
It's so exciting, isn't it? It's incredible. And does your wife share the same love of racing, or is it more your thing?
No, I think it's mostly me. I mean, the family have always come racing since forever. Yeah. And they enjoy it as a day out. One of my daughters works in marketing, and she's forever giving me earache about what the sport could be doing more to market its. And I think that's it. But the point that she makes is very, very valid. That a lot of it actually is down to because you know, the stars of the show can't talk. So on that basis, then the pendulum swings totally to the 2-legged heroes of the sport, some of whom are getting much, much better at promoting the sport and realizing that you've got to be out there and just talk about it in an honest way, but in an infused kind of way. Yes. But I think if you go back to when I was first getting interested in the sport, and some of the biggest names, and this is not, I mean, Leicester was a unique person, but but if you're thinking about someone like Pat Edery, the great trainers of those eras, I mean, they would barely, offer a sentence after, because it wasn't in their remit. They were, their job was to train the horse, and whatever happened, that was the end of it. Yeah. But we live in a very different world now, and every sport, to get its slice of the cake, or to retain its slice of the cake, never mind expand it, has got to understand that it needs to talk to, as many people as possible, and try and get people who, I mean, the hardest thing, anybody can preach to the converted. If you're really interested in table tennis, you'll watch table tennis television till you're blue in the face, because it's your thing. But if you want somebody, if you are involved in table tennis and you want to get somebody interested, you have to convey the enthusiasm, the skill, the accessibility, whatever it might be. And racing is the same. The people who are really able to talk in an open, smile. There's nothing wrong with smiling. Honestly, there really isn't anything wrong with smiling. And that's why, I mean, a lot of the jockeys, someone like Nico de Boinville is a great talker. When he talks, he actually conveys what it's like to ride a horse.
Yeah. You need more people like that.
You need the Bryony Frost kind of giving it as it is.
Human, natural.
Yeah, because people watching on television, and never underestimate the power of TV, people watching it instantly warm to you. And they want, I like that person, I'd like them to win next time.
Yes.
But going back all those years when I first got interested, that's what would have got me infused. And that everybody within the sport has a responsibility if they love the sport. And and I do think, without being too serious about it, I do think there are probably issues down the road for racing as an industry, depending on how whatever route society happens to go down. The sport has to have people able to talk honestly, openly, enthusiastically about why what they do is great, how they love the horses, and how they treat them like anybody watching this treats their dog or their cat, and how just the sheer joy, I think, is a thing that needs to be conveyed. And it's very much the nature of national hunt racing now. It's not because of the breeding issue. It's never going to head down the road of flat racing.
No.
But flat racing's always been a business with it's been a business with the sport at its heart. National hunt racing to me has always been a sport with a business element in it. And obviously, as more and more, big yards, at the moment, horses. At the moment, people start paying £500,000 for horses and things. It starts changing that dynamic a bit. But essentially, it's still, especially national hunt racing, it's the sport.
It's more the pure love of it, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think sometimes, it's very hard. Trying to get people to go racing who've never been can often be the one thing that makes them realize, God, I do love this, and I do want to watch it on television. I do want to see more of it. Because no matter how brilliant television coverage is, ITV's coverage is absolutely outstanding, but no matter how good it is, TV cannot convey what it's like. I remember I've only ever covered one Winter Olympics. I remember the first time I stood on the side of a downhill ski run and watched the best people. I do go skiing, but not exactly that speed. and watched these people go by, and I went, my God, how is it humanly possible to not break in half every time if you're going at that speed? Television can't convey that. It actually can't convey, it can't convey power. That's the other thing as well. Speed, power, and just to stand by a fence and watch 20 odd horses go over almost in synchronicity. It's the power, the colour, the sound, the noise, the smell. Television
The
can't.
noise is just electrifying, isn't it?
Television can't convey that.
No.
And so that's why you have to try and by force of language almost to explain that, to encourage somebody to go to their local course at Sedgefield or at Uttoxeter or wherever it might be, and say, just go and have a look. If you don't like it, it's fine, because it's not for everybody.
Try it.
You might say, but go and give it a go, and don't just stand in the stand and watch. And because 3 have fallen out in the country, somebody wins by 20 lengths, and you think, well, big deal. What was that about? Go out into the country and just sense it. Understand the bravery of the horses and the bravery of the jockeys, and get a sense of the preparation that goes into getting the horses to the race course, and also realize this is a 24/7 occupation. I mean, that's the other great thing about horse racing, is there's no day off on a Thursday because you can't be bothered. I think I'll work from home today.
No, horses outside.
So it's an extraordinary industry, but it's a great sport, and and as we come to next week, it's a great spectacle. That's the thing. It's a great spectacle.
It really is, isn't it? And will you go every day?
Yeah, I'm going every day. Got some guests going, and
yes,
some who've never been. I mean, most, I think, I've got half a dozen guests, none of whom have ever been before.
Oh wow!
So it ends up being a bit of a PR exercise as well, saying because they people.
Well, I'm sure they'll find it incredible.
But people have never been. You just say people. These are quite interesting people, quite successful people in their worlds. They've never heard of Willie Mullins. No. They have never heard of Willie Mullins. They might conceivably have heard of Paul Nicholls. When you talk in jockey terms, it just, if I say Brian Hughes is riding that, it's like, and so you have to go back to square one. You have to explaining
all of it.
And there's a kind of a north-south divide in the sport, but blah blah blah. But certain people are managing to bridge that gap. So you end up, I almost end up being like Peter Hedditch teaching me Latin. I just take it all the way back. You almost have to start from scratch and say, right. And the other thing, you look at a race card. If you're not interested in horse racing, I might as well be looking at the periodic table. I mean, it just means
it means nothing to them.
It's utterly meaningless.
Yeah.
And I do think that one of the things that the sport as a whole should do is make race cards more accessible. I just think at the moment, I mean, sometimes I look at them and go, really? Like half the information there I don't need to know, and some of the information I would like to know. What is wrong? What is wrong with saying on a race card, this horse doesn't like going on a right-handed track. Yeah. And this is left-handed. What that's,
But why not?
But £7 better off for a 4-length beating, please. If you're into that,
then you understand it.
But you're getting that information probably from somewhere else as well. Yeah. And that's in this day and age, I think. It's a wider debate, but I just think that, race cards are, if they are your Bible, if you like, for your first ever day at the races.
Yes. They need to be more user friendly, don't they?
Very, very much so. But still.
Well, anyway, one day.
Take over the world one day. Yeah.
Cotton on. Yeah. So, if you hadn't gone down your broadcasting route, what other career do you think you might have pursued?
Oh my Lord.
Or was it not really any question of it?
No, all I ever wanted to do was write. That's really, that's all I really wanted to do. And after the 1971 Ashes tour, a guy called Alan Gibson, who was one of the very first ever broadcasters on Test Match Special, he was a friend of my father's, and he came around for dinner one night, and he'd been in Australia for 3 months or something, watching cricket and writing about it. And he just came round for dinner one evening and just talked about the last 3 months of his life. And I genuinely remember. I remember the table layout. I can remember where I was sitting.
Oh wow!
Little things like that.
Yeah.
And I do remember going to bed that night thinking, that sounds like a pretty damn cool job to me. That. Not that I really at that stage ever thought about broadcasting, but I thought about writing. And my English teacher at school was sort of a great hero of mine. He couldn't understand why I wanted to go and play sport when I could be reading Jane Austen. But once we'd reached a tacit agreement that he didn't agree with me and I didn't agree with him, his love of language and his love of words just was just genuinely inspirational. And so I always had that in me. And if I hadn't done that, I don't know. I mean, my teacher at university told me I should have joined the diplomatic corps, which always makes me laugh because most of my friends would go, "What? You diplomatic?" But I really don't know. In idle moments, because I love mowing the lawn. In idle moments, I think being a groundsman must be a fantastic job.
Yes.
Just get on that mower, and at the end of it, you've painted a picture that you're very proud of. But just go back to the racing thing. That's why clerk of the course and all the ground staff have a monumental responsibility.
They really do, don't they?
Just not just from the spectacle point of view, but from the safety point of view.
Yes.
And then the responsibilities now are, I think, are manifoldly greater than they were in days gone by, because the public scrutiny is on them so much more.
Yeah. And do you part own or own any racehorses at the moment?
Yeah, I've got bits of a few. Yes.
National Hunt.
Yeah, but both
and flat.
Yeah, and had a bit of a fallow period over the last couple of years, but you never know. Hope springs eternal. Exactly. It is the hope that kills you. That's
well, we all do it for the love of it, don't we? And winners are as a bonus, I guess. So over the years, do you have a particular sort of treasured memory of sport, that you've presented? Was there a sort of particular moment or two that really stands out to you over the years?
Yeah, I mean,
presenting.
Yeah, I mean, the Rugby World Cup in '95, the Mandela Pinar moment, it stands up there. I mean, Murray winning Wimbledon. I mean, God, I've been going to Wimbledon. The first Wimbledon I went to was 1970.
Wow.
And in those days, a British player got to the first Friday, and it was put the bunting out.
Yeah.
And to suddenly be there and for him to finally win was a great, a privileged moment to be there. And I look back on people always think it's funny I do this, but the first Cheltenham festivals I presented them with Gloria Hunniford, because that's how racing was treated on the radio in those days. And with here's the Doobie Brothers and here's the 235 coming up afterwards. And which was actually a great listen. I mean, it really was a great listen. I mean, a way of broadening the sport, by the way. Narrow it down by putting it on its own. So the first Gold Cup I actually did on my own was Desert Orchids in '89.
Oh wow!
And because of everything that happened around that Gold Cup that year and all the build up to it, and everybody saying, could Desi win at Cheltenham when he could win at Kempton at will, and it was just the weather was just indescribable. It was
the awful sleet and sort of.
But the place was a bog. I mean, it really was. I fell over. I genuinely, this is true story. I fell over parking. I parked my car in the car park, which the car parks nowadays are they're like the Ritz, compared to what they'll do. And I fell over, and I just got mud all over me, and I got mud in my hair.
Oh my God.
And I thought, I'm going to present a program all day.
Yeah.
So I went up into the main stand and I washed my hair in a basin in the gents' toilet. Now, you try doing that. It's not easy, especially when those little ones where the taps encroach into the basin.
Yeah.
So you can't get your head under.
Head in.
I had debated. I do remember I debated washing it in the loo. And I thought
flashing.
Yeah. And I thought that was the last resort. I was going to do it in the basin, until such time as I couldn't do it. Anyway, so bit by bit, I managed to do it, and then of course
people coming in and out.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Hello, I go hi.
Hi. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah. Just don't mind me. And And then of course you have to stand, because everybody then wanted to use the hand dryer.
Oh God, yes.
But I'm having to stand. So every time someone goes in, I'm backing under it again.
Yeah.
Anyway, eventually got it done, and and the day pans out, and Desert Orchid wins in dramatic style and what have you. And I interviewed Richard Burridge, who was the owner of Desi, and we did the interview and whatnot, and then went somewhere else. And Richard Burridge, who we kind of got to know each other quite well in the run up to that Gold Cup that year, he said, I've got to ask you, mate. He said, why have you got that huge chunk of mud in your hair? And I'd missed a bit, sort of just here.
The main bit.
Well, there was this clod of mud still at the back of my hair, which I just hadn't been able to get under the tap.
No. Oh God. And John, having been with the BBC for over 30 years, or 30 years.
Well, I should say anybody who'd have me. In the wonderful world of freelancing, if anybody rings you up and says, "What are you doing Thursday?" You say, "Just let me look at my diary." And
yes, or I might be able to.
yeah. But I started my first broadcasting. Well, it's almost to the day, 40 years ago, actually.
Oh.
So yeah,
long time. What do you most miss about being with the BBC?
I don't.
Or maybe you don't.
You miss. It's funny. You miss the anticipation. You miss the anticipation of a big event.
Yeah.
The
electric sort of build up.
Just the sense of I wonder what might happen.
Yeah.
Once something's happened, it's kind of happened, and once you've been around the block a few times, you kind of have seen it all.
Mm.
Everything is history repeating. You just change, the names change, but fundamentally, sport is sport.
Yeah.
Somebody scores a last minute winner. There's a disputed something or other. Whatever it might be, somebody falls at the last. You have seen it all before.
Yeah.
The only thing I haven't seen is a repeat of Devon Lock. I think that's about the only thing I think I've ever seen.
No.
But
might not see that.
But what it is, it's just the when you're looking at the runners and riders, when you're looking at the team sheet, whatever it might be, you're thinking, I wonder how that's going to pan out.
Mm.
Once it's panned out, it's kind of like
done.
It's done. Let's move on to the next one now.
Yeah.
There's analysing what's already happened is interesting to a point.
Yes.
That's like, I don't think I could ever have been a coach.
No.
Because, the endless
going over and over
microscopic video analysis. I go, yeah, really? I'm not detailed enough for that sort of stuff. But in advance of the game, I wonder how X is going to match up against Y.
Mm.
How will Nadal's forehand against that?
Yeah.
How will Marcus Smith go up against whoever, Johnny Sexton, this coming weekend, England, Ireland? Those are the fascinating things. It's like the lunch before the game, the lunch before racing is always more fun than the one afterwards.
The dinner after.
Because wasn't that a great race? Yes.
Yeah.
What's the next question? Do you know what I mean?
Let's move on to the next race.
Wasn't that a great bit of riding? Yes, it was. Wasn't that unfortunate? Yes, it was. Wasn't it a shame? Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Let's talk about tomorrow. Now, what's going to happen here? You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's always about,
much more.
It's always about going forwards, not looking in the rear view mirror.
Back. Yeah. And I remember a very emotional interview you had at the Olympic Games with the rowing a few years ago. It must be so hard to remain unemotional when you're the people, these athletes personally.
Yeah, I think the thing about I think it's become not the norm now, but I think a decade or so ago there was a certain element of still having to maintain a stiff upper lip. You were there as the professional arbiter of bringing the story to the public. But I mean, in that instance, it was Purchase and Mark Hunter. They'd been up at 7 o'clock in the morning earlier for 4 years for that one moment.
Yeah.
And on 1,200 times when they had practiced, that moment with 500 meters to go, when they were going to go from doing that, they were going to go, you know, and on the previous 1200 occasions, it had happened.
Yeah.
But on the one occasion when it mattered, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'd be pretty broken if, you know, if that was everything that I'd been spending 4 years of my life. I mean, I mean, that is the problem with a lot of Olympic sports in a sense, you know, that you have your solitary moment, but it takes you 4, 8, 12 years for that one moment. And you know, and often nobody ever remembers your names. I mean, they really don't. You know, most these days, people win gold medals and people have forgotten their names 24 hours later, because
that's the thing, isn't it?
But the only person that doesn't forget is you, and that's why if you had your moment, and you know, you suddenly lost concentration at a key moment, and you were knocked out, or whatever the circumstance, whatever your sport might be, that lives with you for a very, very long time. It might live with you forever.
Yeah, I know, I bet. So, John, how are you finding your role sitting on the council of the RFU? Are you enjoying it?
I am enjoying it. It's interesting. I mean, it's so easy to throw stones from the touchline when you at people who run things, and it's quite funny now that people, you know, accusing me as I'm throwing the stones back. They're saying, you've turned tail. I think the key thing is to still keep throwing stones from within. But the thing about it is, if you can throw stones from within, you know, the old cliche about if you're inside the tent, you can do something about it. And so, you know, if it's something that you love and it's something you've been brought up with and whatever it might be, and you would like things to change or improve or remain the same, even when, I mean, another thing as well, if people are trying to change things, but you'd like them to stay the same, you can only, you know, you can write 40,000 newspaper articles and you can rail from the touchline the whole time. But actually, unless you're actually at the tiller of the ship, you can't determine what directions it's going. And so, you know, so from that point of view, but again, it's a responsibility. I mean, it really is. It's not. I think the key thing is not to. It's a danger to think that it's, and it can sometimes be a bit of a talking shop, which is, but that's true of any industry, anything. But I think you have to have in your mind what your vision for the sport would be 10, 20 years down the road, and try and get other people who are on that council to see it in the same way that you do. And you can do that. At least you have the opportunity to move in that direction if you're actually in the company of those people, rather than if you're just somebody who's, you know, ringing them up for an interview or ringing them up to just moan about something. So you know, we'll see. It's still early days for me, because the first year of doing that was a COVID year. So I've really only had sort of like 8 months of that at the moment. So it's still very new, but you know, I can kind of see once you've got your feet under the table, you really, and you start seeing I mean, again, the other thing, you know, you talk about Cheltenham, the RFU, again, you're talking about a lot of noughts. You're talking about a massive financial institution, but you're also talking about a lifestyle of a lot of people, you know, for many thousands of people. Horse racing is their lives, it's their livelihood. And, you know, Cheltenham can change people's lives. The next week will change some people's lives. You know, there are 1,500 rugby clubs in England alone. A lot of people devote huge chunks of their lives to those clubs. How can you make their lives easier, better, you know, for all the issues they're dealing with? That's the responsibility you have.
Massive responsibility.
But you also have a responsibility to try and look beyond not beyond next Thursday, and just say 5, 10, 15 years time. Society is changing so rapidly. The game has got to keep up with that change, or it's going to get left behind. And taking people with you on that journey is the hard bit.
No, I should imagine. Thank you, John. Just finally, who do you think, who would your tip be for, say, the champion hurdle Champion Chase and the Gold Cup?
Well, I just hope that one of those 3 races, well, I'd say no, I hope either the Champion Hurdle or the Champion Chase is won in magnificent style by somebody, whether it's Shishkin or whether it's Honeysuckle or whoever it might be. I just hope there's one of those 2 races is just,
yes,
it leaves you, as the horse passes the post 30 lengths clear, everybody turns around and just goes, was that one of the best horses we've ever seen? That's what, you know, so for one of those 2 races, I'd like that, whoever that horse might be. And for the Gold Cup, I would just love there to be, I'd love it to be a neck, a head and a short head. And
yeah,
if Al Boom Photo won it for a 3rd time, that'd be a great story.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
So, you know, but I just hope it's just, you know, at the end of it, again, people just turn to each other and go, wow, that's what National Hunt Racing is all about.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
And that showed the sport at its absolute best.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. It's absolutely fantastic to hear all that.
Well, I hope that was all right.